Ryan was also talking about I was supposed to be in Paris today. And so he's like, I'm sad that you're not in Paris. And I was like, well, this podcast better be as fun as Paris. No pressure, guys. But I expect you to just make it as fun as Paris would have been. So
yeah.
I've been to Paris. It's not good. It's overrated. So.
Hey,
really?
No, Paris
is.
It's super amazing,
good.
and it's super sad you're not there.
It's dirty. Yeah.
This is definitely not going to be as fun as that. So
I'm sure it's better than Paris, dude. I've been there.
Really? Wait, are you saying that to make me feel better, or do you genuinely think Paris sucks?
I really don't like it. I've been there 3 or 4 times, and it's not good. No.
I can't believe that. Everyone says Paris is amazing.
No,
yeah, but
they have electric bikes now, and you can ride electric bikes around Paris.
You can do this everywhere in Europe. That's without the dirty Paris city streets.
Oh my God. Everyone who's French is going to hate this now. So we can't.
I'm French, and I'm really offended. My whole ancestry is offended right now. I'm just kidding.
Classic French, you know.
Yeah, classic French person hating. Cool, awesome. I'm Thorsten. I feel like everywhere I've watched you for years, it's Thorsten, but like that's a proper pronunciation, right? No.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's
because that's the thing. I heard it pronounced differently on a recent podcast I was watching to prep for this, and I was like, wait, have 90% of people been saying this wrong?
Yep.
I was trying to
the movie Thor, the Marvel Thor, or the Norse, mythology figure Thor, you can pronounce it in English and say Thor, or you say Tor, which is
okay.
And my name is derived on that. So if you pronounce it in German or in Dutch or whatever, it's Thorsten. But if you pronounce it in English, it's Thorsten.
Okay.
I say Thorsten just to be cool.
It doesn't. I don't care. Like okay. The story I always tell is, the first time I was ever traveling alone in Australia, I tried to tell the Starbucks person my name. I had to say it 5 times. Then the cup came back, and they wrote on the cup Justin. And I'm like, this is not.
I give up.
Yeah. So
that's hilarious.
Everything else is 10 times better. Thorsten, whatever.
Okay, I kind of want to call you Thor now, just because he's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Hemsworth, I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's stay with Thorsten. Variations of that. Yeah.
Okay, Thorsten, perfect. And Ryan, I want to ask you how to pronounce your name. That would be embarrassing.
It's Rian, and I.
Wow, that's so fancy. Amazing.
I like French. No.
Yeah.
Just Ryan.
So I know you guys both work at Sourcegraph. Did you guys know each other before joining?
No.
No.
But I'm not just kissing Thorsten's ass here. But I had my first phone call with him when I was joining, and Thorsten's like a legit smart person. He's written, all sorts of like interesting books and done all sorts of good stuff. And I had the call, and I think it was called Technical Interview. And I was just completely terrified about this. Like, what? I'm a founder CEO. Like, I used to code a long time ago, and now I code a lot, but I'm not like some senior engineer. So I was like prepping and all this stuff. And then we hung out and had this really nice call. And afterwards I said, you should be the most intimidating, scary person in the world. But that was a legitimately nice conversation. And I was shocked. So,
I mean,
so funny.
In my defense, I think I didn't know there was labeled technical interview. So, but it's not about, give me system architecture or something. And yeah,
that's a scary title because you're going in expecting like quite a lot of coding, possibly or something, right?
Yeah, especially from Thorsten. Like, he is a legit like senior engineer. And I'm like founder guy who codes really hard in my free time. So.
Yeah,
I knew Ryan from the Claire Vaux podcast, which is that was shared a lot, or is still being shared. Like, I still see this pop up on my feed sometimes.
I still see that shared. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so the weird thing is, I saw the podcast and I saw him pop up again and again, and then I knew the name, and I looked at your website and but basically, before we hopped on the call, I didn't make the connection. So then we hopped on the call, and I saw your background, and I was like, "That's
Oh my God.
It's the guy. Yeah, it's him from the podcast.
Yeah.
That
Claire,
was nice.
Yeah.
Claire's created something really special that show. And I didn't know how big it was going to be. Like we just thought, oh, I'll just talk about my 3-step, process and it'll be great. And then it went bananas. So that was fun.
Okay, I want to talk about what you guys are both up to now, and Sourcegraph and AMP. But first, I kind of want to ask you about, I think you've both been programming for longer than me. What has it been like pre-AI and now programming with AI?
Oh my gosh.
How much time we got,
Yeah.
Like, this is, you shouldn't have asked me this.
Say this answer into a 60-second short that will sound good. Okay, no pressure.
Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, I think for 10 plus years, like 15 years, I was hardcore into programming, mechanical keyboards, 130 words per minute, getting better typing, Vim macros, systems programming, all of it. Like I wanted to be a master of this craft. And I think over the last 1.5 years or something, maybe 2 or 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out and everybody was saying programmers will be out of jobs soon. And then you have this, I don't know how many it is, but say the 7 stages of AI where you're like, it's not as good as I am. It will not change what I do. It won't do this. But you kind of always, I caught myself like trying to find reassurances from other people. Like, hey, do you really think like we'll be out of a job? Like, what do you think? What do you think? And there was some fear. And I think there was a moment where I was at Z and working on the prediction model, which they now use base 10, or I think they switched to base 10.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah. And there was this moment where these prediction models, the tab completion models, I was going through a file and changing some stuff, and it would suggest, go down here, tab, 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 tab. And I had this moment of, this is it. Like, this is faster than I could be with macros. And I'm pretty fast. But just, I realized in that moment, like, so much of what I do is just mechanical, like typing, moving this variable down here, changing the parameter name, moving the 2 parameters down, go to the call site, switch the parameters, go here, move this out of the class, all of this. And then you use like a good tab completion model, and suddenly it says, oh, you want to change this? You've got to change it up here and up here, up here, tap, 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 tap. And I realized that a lot of the stuff that I thought I was good at with programming was just being good at manipulating text or typing. And I somehow lost all interest in this, like pretty quickly. Like, just, I'm still good at Vim. I'm still fast, but like, I don't care anymore. Like, I could take the same file and paste it to a model and say, rename this and move this stuff over here. It lost all allure to me. So now I'm much more focused on, say, I don't want to say the higher level because it implies higher, but I'm much more interested in, okay, what do I want to build? What can I now build now that, I don't have to worry about the typing or the text manipulation? Like, what are the things that I am now enabled to build that I previously wouldn't have done because it would have been too much typing? And okay, that's not a 60-second clip, but I think it's kind of like the last 2 years compromised, or compressed. It went from, I love programming, I love typing, I love being in the editor, I love syntax, like all of this to, the mechanical act of typing and manipulating text has kind of lost its appeal to me. And a lot of stuff feels trivial now. So now I want to focus more on what to build, who to build it for, when to build it, what trade-offs to make, and so on.
So do you think newer programmers should not be as worried about things like that, or learning to be fast in your text editor, Vim, for example?
I think you still want to be fast. Being fast is good. It's still underrated, but you shouldn't only focus on typing speed or like manipulating text in your editor. Like, use tab completion, use something else. Like, be fast, because the more or the faster you can do stuff, the higher your frequency of changes, the higher your frequency of feedback is. And you should always optimize for this, like getting fast feedback loops. And at the same time, I also don't think people should not learn stuff as deeply. Like, you still need to know what you're doing, and you still need to know what the models are doing, but maybe, you know, like some things like, you know, like sometimes you come across like a blog post by some engineer who says like, I print out man pages and then I memorize all of the flags. And I look at this with envy and I'm like, I would never do this. You know, like I wish I was that person, you know, that would do this. And then they say like, oh, if you have it memorized, the knowledge is more accessible and blah, blah, blah. But that, you know, like nowadays you can just, it feels like the argument my math teacher always made, you know, like, oh, you won't have a calculator with you everywhere you go. And, you know, turns out there's one in my watch, you know, and everywhere else. And I don't know.
I think there's the massive changes. People who are product minded and have agency themselves now have the infinity gauntlet on, right? And so what I'm seeing is like engineers who are product minded and know what they want to ship because they understand their users. Now they have infinite power, right? And I'll walk you back from a quick story. So, you know, I started off with a computer science degree. I was a web developer, you know, shipped features for the company I was in, and then started my first company and, you know, hand coded everything using, you know, O'Reilly PHP cookbooks back then. And then eventually scaled a company to, you know, we had like 100 employees. I had a CTO, a VP of engineering manager, product managers, designers, developers, customer success, right? And we would have 2-week sprints. And, you know, we'd have a feature idea, talk about it, plan it, ship it. And, you know, 1 week was the fastest, right? And fast forward to today, like, so I'm a builder in residence AMP. So I'm building a startup like while I work at AMP, and I'm using AMP to do it. And so this morning, like I had 2 feature ideas, created 2 different pull requests and shipped them both. And it's not even noon. It's so bonkers now, like what you can do. So it's like, you know, should new devs be worried? Like, no, they should be excited. Like they're going to be this bonkers machine that if they are product minded and they have agency themselves, I think they're going to dominate. And it's just like, what a time to be alive.
It does seem exciting, just like the way you're able to ship so much faster. Yeah.
Like crazy fast.
Yeah. What about some of the arguments for, I know, Thorsten, you had in one of your newsletters recently, there was an article about, it was saying, you know, turn off AI, turn on your mind. And you kind of talk about, there is some risk, but you say like not all code is worth understanding.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that a little more? I'd love to hear Ryan.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Andrew Karpathy, but I think like the term vibe coding has done so much like confusion. It generated so much different people talking past each other. That's unbelievable. And I think when people talk about AI coding now, there's this perception of, oh, it's vibe coding. You don't check the code. You don't understand really what it does. You just talk to the model and say like, it doesn't work. Can you try again? Or the test, you know, something like that. And that's sometimes something you can do, right? And I sometimes do it, but I think the best way to use it is, you know, what my colleague Nikolai, I think he coined the phrase, or he likes to think he did, but like don't delegate your thinking, but the typing. You know, delegate the work, but not thinking about what to build and how to build it. And that's how I see it too. Like, I don't turn off my mind when I use the agent. I think through what I wanted to do and how to do it, and I put this in my prompt, and I review what it did, and I walk through the code, and I double check it. And I think that's good. And I think there's also other occasions, which is the point I was trying to make there with my comment, that, you know, the blog post argued, oh, you turn cursor on and your mind goes off and you don't understand anything. And I think first, what I just said, you shouldn't do this. Like, you shouldn't turn your mind off. But sometimes it does not matter. Like, it just, to give you a recent example, this was 2 hours ago. So in AMP, it's an agent. We have different tool calls. You can talk, you know, it can run bash commands. It can run fetch web pages. It can edit files and so on. So as you can imagine, each tool call in the thread is implemented as like a little widget, and they share like some common stuff like an icon, title, status, whatnot. And I created a new tool, and I told the agent, like, create a new widget for this tool call in the TUI and in web. And I think that makes up in total like 150 lines of code or something. And it just went and looked at 5 other tool calls and basically copy and pasted them and switched out the titles and checked all the parameters and all of that stuff and made sure it works. And then I went through and double checked. And I didn't look at every single line, but I looked at it and tested it. But it was this was pure typing. Like, I could have done this. I can copy a widget from foo.widget to bar.digit and change the stuff. But if the agent can do it for me, why not? Like, it reduces for me a lot of the activation energy required to do stuff. Like, through agents, I realized how lazy I am. Like, you come back from lunch and you're like, ugh, I don't want to. And it's like, hey, I can actually talk to this computer now and say, you do it. And then you have the code, and I think then you're more in the flow. And yeah, that's how I see it. I use it to get rid of like grunt work, and sometimes you also delegate some thinking where you have a fancy bug and you cannot figure it out, and then you go, hey, use the Oracle to figure out what the bug is, and use this big model, and maybe it finds the bug, but then you shouldn't blindly accept its solution. You should still think through, is that correct or is it not correct? Can I test it? Can I verify it? But that's how I see it, as an assistant and not as a replacement.
Amen. I view it as, I think the idea of planning is a lot like warming up before you lift a heavy weight. And so what I find myself doing a lot is before the agent even edits any lines, we'll say, okay, let's talk about it for a while. Like, here's what I'm trying to build, let's look through the code. And it's almost like this really nice conversation that you can sort of spar with and think through things and find holes. And then at the end of that, I'll say, make a markdown file with an implementation plan. And then we just shipped a feature called Handoff, which is like Compact, but it's better. Because what it does is it takes the whole conversation, it pulls out the files that it should mention, and then it hands off the instructions to a new thread, so you don't have all this cruft in the context window. And then so I'll hand off to a new one and say, okay, implement this file. And that sometimes it takes me like an hour to do that. And I think this is rare. I think most people are just saying, build feature now. And it's just like going to the gym. It's like, what if you hopped into the gym out of your car and your body was literally cold and you just like went down for a deadlift and you're like, 4 plates. You would your whole body would like break. Like, you got to do this with agents, warm up your body and then lift the weights. So,
yeah. I think that seems like the right way to be using AI and still learning. I think some of the vibe coder way seems to be just like completely turning your brain off. And it is easy to be lazy. And so it's almost like your brain has an incentive to be lazy and to just not understand the prompts and things like that. And I think that seems like the worry for people who like really need to learn, or if you're new to programming, it's like, it's so easy to switch your brain off a little bit. Whereas before you couldn't really do that.
Can I add another thing here? Like another perspective? I wrote a whole thing about this, which is the realization that, these models aren't Linux kernel developers. You cannot say optimize the memory consumption of subsystem so and so, and it cannot use, we all know it cannot do this, and it cannot do this. But what I'm pretty confident in saying is these models right now can, on first attempt, depending on your prompt, put out, say, 500 to 800 lines of Ruby, JavaScript, Python, Go, what have you, in a single file script, and it works. And to me, that is already marvelous. And the point I made in my post was that it feels like a new kind of code. It's code that you can generate with the push of a button. It takes 10 seconds to generate, or let's say 45 or minute or whatever, you don't waste any energy on this, but then you have a script in 500 lines. And I argued that that's useful in itself. It might not be the best written code, but you didn't pay anything for it and you didn't have to write it. And maybe you don't even have to worry about what's inside of it. And to give you an example, for a lot of stuff in AMP, we talk to models, obviously. And then sometimes you're like, okay, given this prompt, what are the results? Kind of like an eval. And obviously you can do this manually and just run this stuff, or you build a test suite or something, or you use an AI and you build your own little custom debug tool and say, build me a little JavaScript web server that shows me the content of these 5 files with one button next to each. And when I click that button, it sends a request and then shows the response or something. And I noticed that I'm so lazy that I never would have written a tool like this before, because it's 500 lines is not nothing. And then you have to worry about, we don't have this library. What does this package manager do? Blah, 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 blah. But now you just write down your prompt, you hit that button, and you get a little debug tool or a little development tool or little, shiv or whatever you want to call it, like something that helps you be more productive. And you don't even have to check it in, or you don't have to check it in your main code base, but that's already useful. So that's something where I would argue, even if you don't use these tools for your main code, you can still use them to build debug tools, little helpers, little scripts, little dev tools. And most of the time you don't have to worry about what's in them. And that's already super useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, what do you think? Do you agree?
Amen. Thorsten got me onto this train of like push button code where you need something to happen. So I actually have a folder called throwaway, and don't commit it, and there's so many times where I just have the agent crank out weird scripts that do things that I need done fast. Or even to explore stuff, and I think all of us are toying with Playwright too. Like, how do we start automating some things that Playwright can do? I actually saw Quinn did something hilarious where AMP actually uses Playwright and clicks through the website and then talks while it does it. So there's just it's fun to be a programmer again. Like, Thorsten, I think, was always having fun, but I wasn't. Now I'm having so much fun.
What I don't like about this discussion is what always goes unmentioned is that not all code is equal. Like some code, yes, you have to think about for an hour and 2 hours, and maybe it comes to you in the shower tomorrow morning because you didn't get it today or something. And then it's just one line and that line does it all. But sometimes you build a web app and you have to have an admin panel in which you now have to list all the valid coupons or whatever it is. And that means a database table and the CRUD view and blah, blah, blah. And I've done this 500 times. Why 501 times? I'm going to hit that button. And then I'm going to review it because I've reviewed code like this also 100 times. So that's not what the programmers get up in the morning for. So let's get it over with,
Yes, that is so true. I really like that. Like, not all code is created equal. Like, there is a bunch of grunt work that can save up free time to do much more interesting work now. But instead, that somehow gets conflated with, oh my gosh, so many developers are getting replaced just because a lot of the grunt work is getting replaced, I think. At least in the discussions, that's the fear, it seems like, amongst programmers.
I feel like people that are saying programmers are going to be replaced are like just not using these tools. Like, if you are picking up this axe, and using it every day, and the axe actually has lasers on it now, like, you just realize, oh, I can do so much more now. Like, maybe low agency humans who are like just boilerplate coding, they're going to lose their jobs, but not any new proactive, thoughtful developer. Like,
if somebody's job in their mind is to wait for somebody else to tell them what to program in as much detail as possible, and then just implement it without questioning the requirements or something, or without thinking about how does this, affect the business or the product or whatever your level is, like at what, layer you think on. But if you see yourself as, I don't care about the product and I don't care about really what it does, I just want to write the code and build a neat little nifty thing.
Yeah.
I think that's that for most of the jobs that's going to change. Like if you work at Jane Street and you do OCaml to optimize trading systems and make them faster, and you only care about that, and you are an engineer, cool. If you work on websites and you think, I only care about updating the front end framework, like something that's maybe not as deep technical, and that's no comment on front end stuff, but I think that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we're just in a world now where I keep saying agency, and it's interesting because we are building agents, but humans need to be agentic too. And I think it's even more important now. Like, it used to be important to have agency and to be the kind of human who's proactive, but now it really matters. Like, you're just going to get rolled over by humans who are agentic themselves. And, I think this is a good thing. This is a net positive for humanity. Like, we all have these, wild tools that we can strap on now. And AMP is literally free. Like, now you can literally do this for free. So it's sort of like, you just have no excuses anymore. And if you do have excuses, I just don't, I don't acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think another point is that also gets conflated. People in these discussions, I don't know if it's a rhetorical trick or something they do subconsciously. They switch out the best in class with the worst in class, meaning, image generation came out, and then it will never replace a real artist, like it can never do an ad like this, and then they show an Apple ad or something, But what this is about is, and I noticed this yesterday, I was walking through the city, there's a new kebab shop and they had like a new logo, like a little mascot type of thing. 100% AI generated. Like, you could tell. And it doesn't matter. But you know what I mean? Like, previously they would have either not done it or called up like the local marketing agency and paid $200 or whatever it would be. And you see this a lot. If there's web agencies where some guy gets a call to change something under, contact page, to change the address or something, because the guy who owns the site can't do it. I don't think that's going to be a reliable source of income in the future.
Nope.
Yeah.
But best in class will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to ask you both just about how you use AI to learn. I think I'm really interested in both of your answers and to talk about this, especially because, so Ryan obviously founded Treehouse. I was a student way back in the day, so I kind of feel like you're my teacher from a long time ago, which is amazing. And Thorsten, like, I read both of your books. I remember the Primogen did like was shouting them out at one point last year. So I found them and did a book club on them and really loved them. And I think we're in this odd period where some people are saying like it's no longer useful to learn hard things as well. I think that narrative has died down of late. But I'm curious about how you both use AI to learn.
Thorsten, you want to go first?
Not a lot has changed for me in that it's still, I know that I have to build a thing, and I know I have to, translate like knowledge into practice in order to really learn stuff. Like, that's always been the case for me. I would read a book about a programming language, and then you go, yeah, I know this. And then you try to write something, and first file, you're like, wait, what? What's the signature of the main function again? And then you go back, and I don't think that has changed. What's nice now is that, for example, AMP uses TypeScript. I've done TypeScript before. I haven't done it in the last few years. So here I would just constantly ask, like, wait a second, this type, like, what does this type mean? Like the pick or accept or whatever, extract. And then I would ask follow-up questions. Wait, do you think it means this? Do you think it means this? Or can you also do this? And so that's been super helpful. And I think if I were to learn, say, not a new language, you can now do stuff like build your own little exercises, like in Zig, I dug into Zig last year, you can do the Ziglings, which is like, I think it's called koans in other languages, right? You have like 100 small programs that don't compile, and your task is to make them work or something. You can build a little exercise like this yourself. But in general, I don't think a lot has changed. I sometimes ask ChatGPT, like, what does this mean? Can you give me an overview of the whole topic? Can you tell me, like, what are the terms that I need to know in order to understand this? So most recently, we launched AMP Free, which has advertisements in it to support it. And I don't know a lot about, ad exchanges or advertisement servers. So I asked, like, ChatGPT, like, what are the things that I must know in order to implement an advertisement server, for example? And then it gives you 10 things, and then I would read all of the blog posts, and I would come back and ask follow-up questions. What does this acronym mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And so I don't think for me it has not changed the act of learning, but it kind of shortened some things of it, like hunting for resources or not having a resource for something. But yeah, it's nice that there's so much stuff. For example, how to build a terminal emulator, right? Like there's a lot of code out there, but there's not a lot of resources out there that explain it. And I think now with like these models, you can get a lot further and say like, okay, explain to me how this works again. Explain it to me again. Explain it in this way. Explain it with like a metaphor or something. And that's nice.
Yeah, I think my answer is similar. I remember when I went through your book too, I just put the entire thing like in some LLM. I don't remember which one. And then I found it useful to just like check my understanding too. Just kind of like you said, like asking questions and like, what does this part mean? And kind of like refining my understanding. But my learning process wasn't that changed.
Yeah, I even, so sorry, Ryan, one more thing, like start of the year, I wrote an internal blog post, which then became public, the how to build an agent thing on blew up basically in 300 lines of code, how to build an agent. And when I first shared the internal version at Sourcegraph, I said, it's still in the blog post, I want you to type this out by hand. Do not copy and paste this. Do not feed this to an LLM. That's not what this is for. I want you to feel the weight of these 300 lines, or the lightness, like how little code it is and how much boilerplate it actually is. And then people still fed it, and people still sent me messages. They're like, oh, I fed it to Gemini and had it translated to Python. I'm like, that's not what this is about.
They couldn't help it. They had to feed it in.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I want you to lift these weights. It's like, I got a machine to do it for me. And, that's not...
I love how they told you. You say, don't do this. And they come back like, actually, I didn't listen to you.
Yeah. I'm going to do it anyway. So I think education has completely changed now. The reason why I started Treehouse was to teach people how to code. But the reason why I care about that is because if you can code, you can create, and therefore you can create wealth for your family. You can create a business. You can change the world, right? So I believe strongly, like, you should not have to get a computer science degree to do this. This is a trade, right? So it's like you wouldn't go get an electrical engineering degree to be an electrician, right? You shouldn't get a computer science degree to be a programmer, right? And so this is why I started the company, right? And the whole point was, how do you take people who don't know about computer science and give them that skill so they can change their life? And I spent a decade on this, right? I lived and breathed this, hours and hours and hours every day. And we taught something like 1 million people how to code. And what I came away from that is this: the only way that people will learn something new is if it's attached to something they care about. Therefore, right? So what was hard about teaching people how to code is we had to imagine this project that we hope that they care about, and then teach them how to build it, right? And you'd start with something, that is unfortunately kind of vanilla, like a blog, blah, or a personal website, blah. But now you open up an agent, like an AMP or a Cursor or a Windsurf, and you say, I have this dream of creating an app, for local realtors who, need to find listings faster, help me make that. Right. And the agent will be like, okay, well, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And now at first you have no idea what's happening. It's like, but that's okay. Right. So if you have agency though, as a person, what you will say is, okay, thanks. Like, how does that work? Or I don't quite get this, right? And then you shave off about a 5% that you don't know. And now you know 5% of how it works. And you just keep doing this, right? And all of a sudden, after 6 months, you end up being a full stack TypeScript developer shipping a Next.js app because you care about helping local realtors find listings faster. So this is the magic. You have this all-knowing, all-kind, generous, helpful being, literally for free now, right? And it can help you build anything you imagine if you just have agency and patience and curiosity. And what a time to be alive. Like, yeah, there'll be like millions of people who are too lazy to ask questions and be agentic themselves, and they are not going to benefit. But there will be tens of millions of people who are like, I want to build something. I want to put in the work. I want to learn. And they are going to change the world. Like, what a time to be alive. I can't believe this is happening. Like, and we're on this planet right now. Like, this is a once in a millennia thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so well said. Also, if I miss this as a blog post of humans can be agentic too, and just everything you just said, that needs to be out there more amongst all of the fear and other things you see.
Amen.
I mean, yeah, not to be the negative voice here, but what you just said reminded me of this. It's, you go around and you can tell people, oh, ask it to explain this topic to you, or feed this article into it, but then tell it that your best way of learning is by using metaphors or analogies, or, that's my way of understanding it, right? And then you can do this, and then you can have it explain it to you like this, and maybe you can do this. And often you realize like people don't really,
They're
not
agentic.
They
don't care that much.
But they're the low bar. Like, there's millions of people who will put in the elbow grease, right? I think,
but I think, and we see this with coding too, right? Like, these tools, it's a text box. It's still a text box. Like everything, yes, there is other stuff, but still the main thing is a text box. And I think it's an amplifier. Like, if you know what to put in and how to use this text box, you can get a lot of stuff out. But if you don't know or don't want to, it doesn't, you have to put energy in to get something out. And we see this with coding, with learning, whatsoever. It's not the YouTube algorithm. You can't sit in front of it and just press next or, something else. You have to put stuff in.
Well, and probably the next school that will be truly successful will put a UI around that, and realize people do need booting up, or they need guiding. Like, one of the things that I believe strongly at Treehouse is there was only a vertical decision tree that you never had two choices. You always had one choice about what to do, because choice paralyzed everybody, right? So I think, and I know Andre Karpathy is actually, I think, was working on this, like in the education of the future. But I do think you need a wrapper around the text box that guides people through an experience. I'm not going to build it because I already spent 10 years working on that and I'm tired. But I think somebody will. The second thing I will say is I still use YouTube. Like, this weekend, I'm like, how does hydration like truly work in Next.js? Like, I don't know if I get it. Yeah. And so I ended up watching a video by Theo, and he did like this really cool example. And now I totally get how hydration works. So I think it's still a mix of the text box and YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my big point when people say, oh, should I write this blog post? There's already 4 or 5 blog posts out there on the same topic. But when I tried to learn Flexbox for CSS, I think I read 2, 3, 4 articles and I didn't get it. And then the 5th one explained it in a way that made it click for me. Nice. And I think that's the point, right? Like, sometimes you need multiple, like, not everything will click for you and not every brain works like yours. And sometimes you got to find the one thing that works like yours so you understand it. And then to tie it back, right, with AI, potentially you have the chance to have stuff explained to you in a way that makes it click more easily for you.
Amen.
Yeah. I completely agree. I felt this way recently because I forgot what a partial derivative was when I was studying with a friend, and I couldn't find a single. You're just like, oh,
What?
I couldn't find a single video on partial derivatives that actually clicked with me. Like I watched 5 videos on YouTube, and then finally just went through with an LLM to explain it. But I completely agree. Like a lot of resources like won't click for me, and then I find one video that is explained in such a way that I actually understand something. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm dying. Why were you reminding yourselves how partial derivatives work?
I was going through a friend's paper on inference stuff, and there was some parts in there where you need to understand derivatives, and I was like, I don't remember any of this from classes forever ago. I need to refresh, essentially. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that brings
But we
back
don't have to get into that.
bad memories of high school calculus for me.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I want to talk about Sourcegraph. I've been following you both for a while, so I kind of saw when you both announced that you started working there and everything, but I'd love to hear just about what you're both working on now and what brought you there, what you're excited about.
You go ahead, Ryan. You have a good title and a good story.
Okay. Well, no, yours is great too, but I'll go first. Okay, so I've spent 25 years being a founder CEO, and I didn't anticipate I would join a startup as an employee. But here's how it happened. So after, Treehouse was acquired, and then I sat around twiddling my thumbs for a little bit, and then large language models like hit the mainstream, and I was like, oh yeah, neural networks. Like I knew about these, when they were called perceptrons. Like what is happening? And obviously was blown away. And then I realized I don't know anything about silicon. Like I don't actually understand matrix multiplication. Like how does it actually happen? And so I went and did what I call an adult internship at Intel. I was like, how does a foundry work? And how does, I don't understand this stuff. So did that for a year and a half and learned a ton. It was really fun. And while I was there, I had this idea for a startup. My 2 sisters had got divorced, and it was gnarly for them. And I was like, divorce needs to be disrupted. So I started building an AI agent for that. And then I was using Cursor, and I was using Cursor like a wild man, like nights and weekends. And I was like, this is the most engaging product like I've ever encountered. So I was using it, and then I was on X because I live on X, and someone said Cursor or Claude Code. And then some guy popped up and said AMP. I was like, what's AMP? And I don't even know what this is. So I try it and I install it. And the first thing that happened was number one, I was like, where's the model selector? Like, what the hell? Like, what model is this using? That's weird. And then I said, make some change. And then it just did it. And I'm like, what? Wait a second. I didn't accept any diffs. Oh my God, it just changed my code. And I was kind of mad. So I hopped on X, and I was mad. But intrigued. Like, this is a very opinionated product. And of course, Quinn, our CEO, he's like all over X, 24 hours a day, started replying to me. And that was intrigued me. Like, what is the CEO doing? Like, replying to me. And then he's like, well, let's hop on a call. So we hopped on a call. And that was fun because, like founder to founder, like you can just be direct about stuff. And so we had a good conversation, and then I said, I'm going to, either build my startup full time or maybe run DevRel somewhere because I love community and developers. And he's like, well, you should join us and do both. I was like, well, what does that even mean? And he's like, well, build your startup and you can keep all the IP and build it with AMP and, tell people what's great or not great about it and just do it in public. And I was like, that's the best job offer I've ever heard.
Dream job.
So
yeah,
I, went through scary technical interviews with Thorsten and then got hired. And it's such a fun place to work because Quinn and Byung, the co-founders, they don't care about history or what used to work. All they care about is what is the future and how do we bring it. And I get to work with them and smart people like Thorsten. And it's wild, but fun. Yeah. So that is my weird story for how I ended up here.
That's amazing. Yeah. Sounds like such an amazing dream job. Just kind of like learning in public as well and building online.
I love it.
It's cool.
Thorsten.
Yeah. Mine isn't, how do I shorten this?
60-second clip. No, sorry.
60-second. Okay, I was at Sourcegraph for nearly 5 years. Then I left now 2 years ago because I wanted to learn more about programming and getting better. After 5 years at the company in the same code base, there's still stuff to learn, but it's not as fast as it was at the start. So I wanted to learn more. I went to Zed, text editor written in Rust, worked with some of the greatest programmers, I think, in the world. I learned a ton, but somehow I realized this does not make me that happy. And I left after a year, and I was looking around and like trying to figure out what to do next or who to talk to. And I talked to a bunch of companies, and then who knows whether it was random, but I met Quinn at the airport in Frankfurt. Like I live, from the airport, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in Frankfurt. You want to meet up for breakfast or dinner or something?" And we met up. And at that point, I was already pretty much, I did fine tuning at Zed with the completion model. We built this feature, shipped our own model, and I was AI pilled, as they say. And I told Quinn, like, Quinn, if I were still at Sourcegraph, I would put a model here, and nobody should ever have to write YAML again, and don't do this. And if I had to redo the thing that we did 4 years ago, I would build it like this. And then he was like, hey, you should come back. And Sourcegraph at that point had Cody, the coding assistant, and also tab completion, and they had code search and the code AI platform. And there was like, this was the stuff that was exciting to me, and I know the whole team, and I get along with Quinn and Young really well. So then I was like, yeah, what the hell? I'll go back. Let's try this. And went back, and then pretty quickly, basically a couple weeks after I rejoined, Quinn and I started hacking on what is now AMP, which was, we wanted to try like a pure agent, and instead of building it into Cody just for speed of development, we created a new code base and gave the model some tools and let it rip. And we were sitting there, standing up and shouting in the office, look at this, like what it does, this is crazy. And
sounds so fun.
So we started hacking on AMP, and then I think for the next, couple of months, it was me, Quinn, Young, Tim from Australia, and then we were like, okay, we got to ship this. Like, this is a thing. We got to reset expectation. It's a new product. This is different than Cody. It's more expensive in this way. It's no model selector. There's no subscription model, which back then was seen as radical. And now, look at us. A lot of people do consumption-based pricing. And then, we shipped this in May, I think. Yeah, in May. And so, I've been basically, I'm one of the co-creators of AMP, and now still one of the engineers on the AMP team. And
so if there's someone who hasn't tried out AMP yet, can you talk a little bit about like what it is and what you love about it?
Yeah. So AMP I would describe as a opinionated coding agent that works really well. And it's opinionated because we really try to tune it to a specific system prompt, a specific set of tools that we handpick, and a model. We don't have a model selector. We don't let you customize different modes. We don't let you customize roles. You can focus on what you want to build. You get a text box, and you can select between the default modes. It's called Smart, and then the free mode, which is our new mode since 2 weeks, the ad-supported ones, which is free. But then that's it. And there's no stuff between you and the model, basically. So you get the full power. And then the conversation is called a thread in AMP. It's also on the server on ampcode.com. So you can share those threads with your team. You can see what they are working on. You have a feed of what everybody else is working on, which is a big thing for people in companies. They want to share threads. They want to share what they did and what they built and how. They reference this in pull requests. And we have customized sub-agents, which is something, or specialized sub-agents, we call them. So other products have sub-agents, some specialized, like most tools have like something called a search sub-agent or something. But others have like generic sub-agents, and you can then define them like your own Jira fetch ticket sub-agent or something. But what we have is out of the box, we have specialized sub-agents like the Oracle, which is the super smart model. Right now, it's GPT-5, prompted in a specific way so it can serve as a planner or architect or a reviewer or something. We do have another one as of last week called the Librarian, which is an agent that can search and research code on GitHub. So you can say, research why my dependency does, how this works. And it can go on GitHub and find your dependency on GitHub and research this code. We have super fast search agent. We also have, to zoom out, AMP comes with like tab completion, which is hosted on Baseten, and we use our own model for this. So yeah, we have the CLI, a really nice TUI, like a super good TUI, I would say, and we have a VS Code or editor extension that works in VS Code and Cursor and all the others. Yeah,
it's cool that there's so many different ways to like use AMP, whether you're a terminal person or working in Cursor or wherever you need to be.
We even have like IDE integrations. So even if you use JetBrains, you can connect your CLI to JetBrains, and then the AMP CLI sees what you do in JetBrains.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, it's cool.
In case you're a JetBrains person.
Yeah, shout out to JetBrains users.
One thing that we're doing, excuse me, is we're trying to create a community. We're trying to create a community for people building with agents, and like we don't care if you build with Cursor or Windsurf or AMP or Cloud Code, and it's called Build Crew. And the idea is to be really welcoming to people who are building with agents and give them the best tips and strategies possible, and not market AMP to them all the time. So that community's gotten big fast. It's over 1,000 members already. So if anybody listening wants to join, it's free. There's no secret sell. Just go to buildcrew.team. And then we do Build Crew Live, which is a weekly show where we just talk about like, how are we building stuff? What's working? What's not working?
Yeah.
Because it is hard and weird and exciting and all of it to build with agents, isn't it? It's just so different. So
yeah, Ryan, I love that you're sharing your process of like how you're using AMP, but just also how you're building in general, because I think that there's just so much different information out there. And it's tricky to know like what's the best way to be using these tools.
Yeah. It changes like every week.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. That's the funniest part of this, that over the last 8 to 10 months or something, everybody discovers the same things and kind of goes through the same phase, but we still haven't figured it out at all. Like we figured out some things, we figured out some things that work and some things that don't, but still we're super early. And I think the whole appeal of AMP, what we said from the beginning is, we don't know, like this might change. We're figuring this out. Like the product might change, because we don't say this is the best way to do it, because who knows? Like we've only been using these agents for 4 weeks and now it's been 8 months or 10 months. And I still wouldn't say this is the absolute best way to use them for all eternity. So this whole, let's figure it out together, that has been baked in to AMP from the start. And now Build Crew is basically, making it real or super real.
I love that. So Build Crew is kind of like inviting the community to come in and build with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I got to sign up. It sounds quite fun.
It's fun. I mean, we even have daily stand-ups if you want to hang out and talk about this is what I'm building, this is where I'm blocked. And that happens in Discord. So and you won't get told off if you're blocked.
You won't get in trouble if you're blocked.
No.
That sounds quite fun. Yeah, and it also seems like the rate of change in the space is crazy. Like at Baseten, our founder Amir, he was talking about this recently, where like we have great product fit right now, but might not at some point, because everything changes so fast. So you just have to be like, constantly evolving, pretty much.
That's so funny. That's funny because Ryan can attest to this. Quinn and I internally, we've been saying exactly this. Everything is changing so much, and I started being a software engineer in 2012, like a professional software, being paid for it, right? And in every company I've been in since then, the base assumption was always this: find product market fit if we don't have it, and if once we have it, scale up the company. Like that's been the playbook for the last, say, 15, 20 years in SaaS, in the era of SaaS companies, right?
Yeah.
But now with AI, like what your CEO is saying too, is even if you have product market fit, the technological change right now is so crazy and so big and so frequent that you might lose it in 6 months. And that even if you think we're the biggest company in the world, in 6 months, you might be dead in the water because suddenly somebody comes up with running inference on potatoes, and suddenly nobody cares about GPUs anymore.
Yeah.
I want inference on potatoes.
It would be nice.
It would be
That's
nice.
going to be the name of this podcast. Inference on potatoes.
Right? I mean, another example of things changing so fast is how fast you can build a solution for yourself to something. So over the weekend, I was like, I want to annotate evals, for my startup, because I need to know that my agent is saying the right things, and because we're dealing with legal things, and so it's very important that we verify. So I like tried a bunch of open source tools, closed source tools, that supposedly plug in. And it took me like an hour, and I was, there was some config problem, and I gave up, and I just went to AMP, and I was like, oh, I just want to annotate some evals. What would it take to build that? And I was like, it would be easy, and here's what it would take. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And so in an hour, I shipped my own cute, version of eval annotations. It was exactly what I needed. No extra features, no extra fluff, no cruft. And I was like, whoa, that was magical. And people may say, oh, now you have extra code to maintain. I'm like, no, this is code that's core to my startup. And I know exactly how it works. And it has just the features I need and only the UI I want. And I love it. And I was like, that was new and weird. And so we'll see about, that's going to disrupt all the companies doing this stuff. So then what? Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder.
Inference on potatoes.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about AMP Free that you guys just launched. I thought this was such a cool model. Can you talk a little bit more about what is AMP Free?
Yeah, so to the same point again, everything is changing. We started out with AMP by saying we cannot give good quality when we have to make it work with a $20 a month subscription. Like, these models are too expensive. These agents get good or get better the more tokens you give them or the more freedom you give them. So from the start, we said we're going to build the best possible agent, ignoring the cost. So if you want the best possible agent and you want to pay for it, you can use AMP. And then over the last few months, people started switching to consumption-based pricing, like other companies. We ended up with the subsidized tokens, where the large model providers give you like a $100 a month or $200 a month subscription. And then they basically burn money by giving you tokens for cheaper and whatnot. And the whole thing has been going crazy, I would say. And so when you have friends telling you they pay hundreds, like $400 a month from their own money in their spare time for dev tools, that's so crazy. That's the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my time as an engineer, Yeah. And so we realized, okay, cost, this is the big thing. We have to tackle this. And so then Quinn came up with the idea of, what if we make it ad supported? What if we get ads in the product? And at this point, he would say, hear me out, or say, this is crazy, but hear me out. What if we put ads in, and this way we can finance a version of AMP, so we can make it free for people who cannot afford $200 a month. And we get the money from the advertisers to pay for the tokens, and somebody gets, free AMP. And at first I was like, what are you talking about? What? Ads? And then you start thinking about it, and I was like, this might not be that bad. Most of the good things on the internet are financed by ads because they're free. And if you think, YouTube, I think YouTube is amazing. And I think Google Maps is amazing. They're both free. They're both supported by ads. And then my thought process was, look, we have model companies with billions, with the B, in funding, with billions in losses or, data center costs and whatnot. We have developers paying hundreds of dollars a month. Like, maybe this is the time to try an ad-supported version of app. Like, maybe this is let's try this. And then we started to sketch it out internally, and everybody kind of started liking it. And then we now have like AMP free, and it's free. It's not the super expensive model that's in the normal AMP, but it's a cheaper model, so we can afford to pay for it with ads. But it's still really good, and you have like a little ad there. It's not mixed into any of your conversation. It's clear what the ad is and what the rest of the conversation is. It's not, you're absolutely right, but you should try, blah, 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 example.com and sign up there. So it's not mixed, but we also have these ads in the terminal, and it's nice. Like, I use it a bunch, and it's free and it's fast. It's a really fast model. And the interest from the advertisement side has been amazing. And I would also argue that the reception has been much more, well received or positive than I thought it would be. Like, people were like, this is smart. I get it. Like, I don't want to pay $200 for all of the providers. Somebody had to do it. It was just a question of time. Glad you guys did it. So,
and literally, I clicked on an ad yesterday for Tailwind, Plus, and I bought it, and because it's amazing. It's $299 for all this just amazing, essentially CSS. And so these are the ads I think people actually want. They're like, oh, this is a good tool. Or, and they're going to get better because we're going to be able to do inference on, like, what is the project? What are you missing? What might be a hole that you actually need to fill with a good tool. And every dev loves that. Like, I love a good tool that fills a hole that I need to fill,
Yeah, I love that. And I love that there's also the clear difference, like, where the ad is at, like separate, it's pulled out in that way. So it's kind of there, but it's not really embedded.
Yeah. I think, some people have said like, oh, this is going to make the product worse. And then you have like all of these wrong incentives. But I mean, who knows I can't predict the future in a year. I couldn't have predicted this. But for now, it's pretty clear that we just want to show you good ads. And I personally want to be involved with these ads and make sure they look good and that the copywriting is good and that it's not shitty. And I think there's good looking ads. There's good, people who, I'm not an Instagram user, but supposedly everybody who uses Instagram says these ads are good. I like, I listen to a lot of podcasts and most of those ads are good, and Google Maps, whatever, like, there's good ads, and that's what we want to have in the product.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I agree. I feel like a lot of the things I buy that I love originally came from an ad that I saw somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, developer ads are also like, this is, I don't know, I said this internally, like, it's like a mini hacker news for me, where I sometimes watch the agent and then the ad switches and I'm like, oh, what are they up to? And then you click on this and you're like, oh, I didn't know they'd do this, like,
yeah, so much to learn there.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine a dev, including myself, ever being delighted to click on a banner ad, anywhere on the internet, right? You're like, I'm trying to read something. Why would I click off and go somewhere?
Yeah.
And so we weirdly think we stumbled upon like an innovation in the ad channel marketplace. Like, oh, this is actually a place that you might want to click an ad because you're literally doing something that is related to this that might help you, and it's just, it's cool. Like, when you first experience it, and it doesn't feel yucky or intrusive at all.
And it's not, it's, you're waiting anyway. Like, you're often staring at the agent waiting when it's done. And it's not like, we're saying, well, you can only submit this prompt after the next advertisement, and it's basically, imagine if you still had to buffer your videos on YouTube and you watch an ad while it buffers in the background. Like, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point. The difference between, I Google something, find an article, and then there's some kind of random ad versus there's an ad right there, like, that's going to help me with what I'm actually building right then.
Yeah. I think we should build like an internal shitty version of this where the submit button for the, like it's a fake one and you click on it and it pops up and it's like, this is the original one. You want to click on this and a new page opens and stuff slides out and pop-ups. That would be fun.
There we go.
I like that. You should do it.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about like base 10 using AMP. Can you talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah. So I'm not on the AMP tab team, so I might miss details. Hitesh, Tom, Valeri, super smart guys, they're on the AMP team. And basically AMP tab is our tab completion engine that in the editor extensions of AMP, you can use it. And in the tab completion game, it's all about latency. Most of it is about latency. And we were trying to get the latency down as much as possible. And with all of the other competitors, we've reached our limits. And then we worked with base 10. And they could do speculative decoding and KV caching. And you can deploy your own fine-tuned model on your infrastructure, on the base 10 infrastructure. And it sped up, I think by now it might be even faster, but in I think July, we had a blog post where we announced that AmpTab is now 30% faster. That was due to the switch to base 10. And so they offer, a lot of, you collaborate with them with base 10 and they help you make your stuff faster. It's not just that you drop this in and say, fingers crossed, I hope it's faster, so they can help you out a lot. And from what I understand now, we have multiple experiments running that are uniquely enabled by the base 10 infrastructure. For example, multiple models at the same time where one can learn from the other. And that's only because base 10 offers this type of infrastructure or, way to run these models. And yeah, I think, again, I can't speak to all of the details. I want to say anything wrong here, but base 10 made it all super fast, close collaboration, a lot of features that we couldn't get anywhere else. And it's been, huge success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
This was an advertisement.
I just paid you, Venmo you after this to say all this.
No, but it's genuinely like when you read through what the team reports, what more can you ask for? It's like, it got faster. They helped us. They used their expertise to complement our expertise. We can do what we need to do to make our product better. Now we don't have to worry about it again. It's perfect.
Yeah,
super nice.
Absolutely. Love that. Awesome. I think that's a great place to wrap up. Thank you so much for being here.
This is fun.
Thank you
guys, Ryan, Thorsten. Appreciate it. It was super fun.
Thank you. I hope that we made it slightly as fun as going to Paris.
It was definitely super fun, and I really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Let us know if you end up going DiffyQ as well, in addition to your other calculus adventures. So,
are you going to Paris? Is this is it just is it canceled or will you go? I
think it's just postponed, but okay. I'm moving into a busy season at work and everything, so it's going to be postponed for a while now. So,
okay. Maybe in spring it's better. But.
Yeah, maybe in spring. Yeah, maybe in spring. Now I feel like I don't even want to go after what you said, so I appreciate.
Don't listen to him. He's shit. Paris is so good.
It's not.
Well, now I have less FOMO that I didn't go because I've never been. So it was really fun to talk to you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
thanks, Madison.
Thorsten, from your books, I feel like I've been following you from forever and going through your books in a study group years ago. And Ryan, I just feel like you're from a decade ago in my life of taking your courses. I don't have a computer science degree, so taking them forever ago and then broke into coding was absolutely life-changing for me. So it's so cool that I actually get to hang out with you guys and that we got to talk. I just slightly starstruck. Feels really cool. So yeah, anyways, thank you both.
Thank you so much. And we'll be around. We're on Slack, we're on X, so hit us up whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do more collaborations in the future. I don't know what that looks like. I've been playing around with AMP, but I'm gonna keep playing around with it in more of my projects and stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
See y'all later.
Okay, cool. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.